Well, good morning on Good Morning Geelong, where we're at the end of the Cup Carnival, and if you think back a few days to Cup Day itself, the Herald Sun that morning had a 8-page wraparound of Cup fancies and news and so on. Inside was the paper itself. Now, keeping in mind that Cup Day is a school holiday for many. It varies a bit here in Geelong, but certainly right through Melbourne it's a school holiday. The front page of the rest of the paper, which was featured as the normal front page, had a very detailed and graphic description of the murder of a young woman at Phillip Island. What I found was increasingly distasteful about the report was on the very front page, as I say, keeping in mind, school holiday, kids are likely to read the paper, especially for the Cup and so on, more than they might on other times. The graphic detail that was there in terms of the way in which this murder had been committed was something which, if it was a movie, it would be rated MA 15+, whatever that really means these days. There's a trend that has been becoming almost a self-fulfilling prophecy within the context of media, particularly a lot of the US-based television shows, things like the CSI shows, the NCIS, Bones, all of these various crime-based shows, which show extraordinarily graphic detail of crime and the whole nature of the way in which people go about things which are not commonplace for most of us, in fact, which probably only affect a small number of people. When they do, the trauma for people who have suffered maybe the loss of a family member in seeing the graphic way in which these crimes are depicted is extraordinary. I was talking only a week or so ago to someone who had a parent murdered a few years ago, and I can only imagine the sort of distress it must cause those people who are the small percentage of people directly affected by this. The question arises, why do we want this detail? In the Herald Sun article on Cup Day about the arrest of people the previous day in relation to the murder of this young woman, the fact that the arrested person had been charged and that others were charged as being an accomplice, surely that's sufficient for what we as the public need to know. Do we really need to know all the graphic and horrendous details of this particular case? And as I say, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We become quite insensitive to the way in which we deal with one another. And it's an interesting angle that perhaps as we wonder about the violence on our streets, and we talk about drugs and we talk about alcohol, but I wonder whether as a society we are becoming totally desensitised to physical violence because we present so much of it graphically, especially on television, and now even on the front page of our supposedly family newspapers. To me, it's something which is a very unfortunate trend within our society, and I would hope there might be a bit of a backlash against the Herald Sun for publishing this sort of stuff. A few years ago, it might have been in an old paper called Truth, which people only bought, or they used to say they only bought it for the form guide, but that wasn't really true. But it really has no place in the ordinary family home, particularly on Cup Day when kids are likely to read it far more than they might otherwise be. Yes, the distressing details of crime is something which perhaps needs to be mentioned in the law courts in order that justice be done, but I'm not sure that we need it on our plasma screens or in our morning newspapers. Hopefully it might be a trend which, one way or the other, may begin to be reversed. Good to be with you on Good Morning Geelong.
Joining us up in the Gargan room before they go into the committee room for lunch are two of the most famous brothers around our great city. Robert Chisholm, how are you, Rob?
I'm very well, thank you, Graham.
And you're looking very well indeed.
Yes, I am. Now that I've got this newfound fame, I'm feeling great.
And of course, none other than Chisholm as we know him, Graham Chisholm. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, Graham. Good afternoon to you.
Now, they tell me you've done a little deal in the first, of course, Chisholm Petroleum sponsoring the first race here on the Geelong Cup Day. It's been part of the tradition in the Chisholm family, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've done it for nearly 10 years now, and we've finally talked the committee into let us have an early race so I can relax and have a few beers afterwards.
At the present time on lemon squashes, of course.
Yeah, that's right, until 12:30, mate, and then I'll cut loose. Yeah.
But you've pulled off the cue of the day because you've talked your brother into doing the presentation.
Yeah, I've done it the last 2 years, mate, and it's his turn this year. Shouldn't call you, mate.
How does that make you feel, Robert? I mean, you'll be up front and close and personal there.
I reckon I've done enough speaking in public, Graham, and I'd much prefer for my brother to do it. But anyway, it'll be short and brief and won't bore anybody, and I'll say the right things, I hope.
We know you will. Kez, let's turn our little attention. We've got to mention the Two Blues, the old Newtown and Chilwell Cricket Club. GT doing a great job down there, but they're on the improve.
Well, struggling a bit, mate. We've got a lot of kids coming through. Like last weekend, we had, I think, sort of 7 or 8 kids, less than 20. So it'll take us a while to rebuild, Graham. But we're a strong club. We're strong right through the juniors, and we'll be back on top sooner rather than later.
Back on top sooner rather than later, and you can always catch up with all of the latest cricket news on the Geelong Cricket Show on Channel 31 on Saturday morning at 8:30. But we thank the Chisholm brothers, Robert and Graham, for joining us at the Geelong Cup, the biggest party in Geelong. We're at the Geelong Cup at the Geelong Racing Club. It is the biggest party of the year. We're going to a break on Good Morning Geelong and we'll be back with more after this.